Okay, you're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. We're going to let people come into the webinar, and then we'll start in about 1 minute. Okay, it looks like the number is slowly starting to slow down, so we'll get the webinar started and people can continue to join. Thank you so much for attending the virtual open house for the Michigan Medicine and VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System Consortium in Clinical Neuropsychology. We appreciate you being here and hope that this presentation can introduce you to what we have to offer you as a postdoctoral fellow, and we can answer any questions that you might have. If you do have questions throughout, please enter them in the Q&A instead of the chat. So that way we can record them as they come in. And if anything is not answered during the webinar, we can go back to them and answer them on our website. So before we get started on the postdoc itself, I just wanted to introduce you to one of the best cities in the country, which is Ann Arbor, Michigan. It has been rated one of the best places to live, one of the best places to raise a family, and one of the best places to work by multiple sources. It is a great place to be. There's always something to do. And later in the presentation, we will have a postdoctoral fellow kind of tell you some of the really exciting, fun activities that are available in this wonderful place that is Ann Arbor. But I'm going to focus on some of the nuts and bolts of the program to give you a sense of what we're all about. So as the name implies, we are a consortium between the Michigan Medicine, which formerly was called University of Michigan, and the Ann Arbor VA. So the Michigan Medicine location is primarily housed at a building that we call Commonwealth, because the address is 2101 Commonwealth Boulevard. That is the building that you see here on the left. It is a one-story building. Parking is directly outside. Parking is free. The building is calm and quiet and peaceful, and it's a wonderful place to see patients and do really important clinical work. What you see on the right is the University of Michigan Hospital, which is repeatedly ranked the best hospital in the state of Michigan and one of the best hospitals in multiple different specialties throughout the country. So it provides an opportunity for a lot of excellent clinical experiences as well as research opportunities in a variety of different areas. Here is some internal photos of the Commonwealth building. On the left, you have our waiting room. And on the right, you have one of our primary conference rooms. It is well equipped with both a large space for large gatherings. So we have journal club in there, we do didactics in there, we have staff meetings in there. It also video conferences to sites throughout the university and throughout the world. So you'll learn later that we do a cross-cultural seminar where we broadcast to sites throughout the world from this room, and it's an awesome experience. At the University of Michigan, postdocs do have their own offices. So here you see an example of a postdoc office on top, and the bottom is a faculty office. You'll see that they're virtually identical, but the faculty office usually has a window. But you are provided your own individual space to do your work and see patients. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. Spencer, who is the lead of the VA site, to talk about the locations of the VA.
So the VA clinic is not going to have as many nice pictures because the VA is a little weird about taking pictures inside of the facilities. But this is what the exteriors look like. The building on the right is on Packard Street, and it's kind of like the Commonwealth Clinic in that it's a clinic that stands alone, apart from the rest of the hospital. As bland as that building looks on the outside, it looks really nice on the inside. It's a fairly new renovation. And inside of there, the fellows will share an office, so there's not an individual office. We have individual testing rooms. You know, we've got a nice testing closet and a nice backup testing closet. And there's a good space to do anything you need to do. On the left side is the main hospital. And the main hospital has our community living center, which is a 40-ish bed facility, depending on COVID numbers, how many people they have for people who are rehabbing, usually something physical illness. And also is where we do our clinic work. So where our polytrauma clinic is and where our geriatric clinic is. And parking is ample at both sites. Dr. Matruba?
Okay. So some of the specifics about what we're recruiting for this year. We will have 6 positions beginning in September 2023, 3 adult positions at Michigan Medicine, 2 adult positions at the VA, and 1 pediatric position at Michigan Medicine. Our application deadline is December 1st, and it's all done electronically, and the site to submit your application is listed here, and it's also on our website. Just to go over what our mission is, the consortium adheres to a scientist practitioner model with a mission to contribute to the development of competent clinical neuropsychologists and prepare them for board certification through ABCN in conjunction with the American Board of Professional Psychology. So being that we are a scientist practitioner model that adheres to the Houston Conference guidelines, we devote approximately 50% of our time to clinical experiences, and the other 50% is devoted to a combination of research and education. So no matter where you are in the consortium, whether you're at the U of M or whether you're at the VA, there are certain things that are identical and certain things that differ based on site. So education is one of the things that is virtually identical at the 2 sites, no matter where you are. And the required education includes at least 4 hours per week. 1 hour is spent in a professional development seminar, and that occurs weekly in the first year and then monthly in the second year. And this includes the entire cohort, which includes other psychology disciplines. So one of the benefits of our program is that we have a very large neuropsych class. So right now we have 7 postdocs stationed at the U and 4 postdocs at the VA. However, all of them are under an umbrella network of postdoctoral training programs, including other psychology disciplines, including adult psychology, child clinical psychology, and serious mental illness. So you have the opportunity to network with psychologists from across those disciplines, which is really a unique experience. So that professional development seminar focuses on topics that are relevant to that entire group. So that could be issues related to ethics or legal challenges or passing the EPPP or perfecting your vita or getting a job, those sorts of things. Then there are some required education that is neuropsych specific. So there is a 2-hour didactic / journal club weekly. And this takes a variety of forms. Sometimes it's faculty talking about their research or different clinical areas of interest. Sometimes we have outside speakers from across the nation. And then in the second half of the year, we devote a lot of time to fact finding. So each postdoc has the opportunity to present a case that they have seen, and each postdoc has the opportunity to be in what we call the hot seat, but we do that in a very professional and supportive way, where we try to simulate oral boards and prepare postdocs for that. So a postdoc presents the case and a postdoc is in the hot seat once per year. And then 4 times a year, the journal club / didactic is substituted by the Michigan Alzheimer's Disease Research Center Clinical Pathology Conference. And this is a really cool experience where the disciplines of neurology, neuropsychology, and pathology all interact with regard to one case. So a case that was seen in neurology, then tested by us, and then subsequently died and provided their brain for autopsy. So it's done in a fact-finding format and also a really wonderful training experience. And then the other 1.5 hour per week is typically devoted to grand rounds. That can be through psychiatry or neurology. Usually the postdoc will look at whichever one is more interesting to them or relevant to their professional development in a given week and choose to go to that one. With permission, if postdocs find additional opportunities that they want to explore that are relevant to their career goals or their professional development, and they want to substitute one of those opportunities for grand rounds in a given week, we could also do that. And that brings us to all of the optional educational experiences, which are truly limitless. So the opportunities available through the U and the VA are just so numerous that you can't take advantage of all of it. But some of the ones that we really encourage are a neuroanatomy class that we offer to postdocs in the first semester of their second year. And it's a class through the University of Michigan Graduate School that includes both a lecture and a wet lab. So if you haven't had a wet lab yet, you get the opportunity to take a graduate class at University of Michigan, audited, no grade, just the opportunity to take the class that includes that wet lab and a lecture. There's also, as I mentioned before, that cross-cultural seminar, which includes institutions in Greece, in Norway, Uganda, Lithuania, Bangladesh, and then we also add in MSU, which really is also in a fact-finding format and gives you the opportunity to see how cases are conceptualized in different cultures, which is a really unique experience as well. Dr. Spencer offers a test practicum weekly at the VA in which he investigates psychometrically grounded test interpretation, why we use certain tests, normative databases for certain tests, and really helps you understand how to use a test the best you can in the appropriate setting with the appropriate people. Additional optional educational experiences include neuropathology conference, so you can go to brain cuttings, the refractory epilepsy conference, which U of M postdocs will automatically go to when they're on the epilepsy rotation, which I'll talk about in a bit. But if you're not on that rotation and you would like to attend that, you can. The Michigan Alzheimer's Disease Research Center Consensus Conference. So another benefit of our program is that we are closely linked with the Michigan Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, which is actually in the same building as Commonwealth. And they hold a biweekly multidisciplinary diagnostic meeting and you're welcome to attend that. There are multiple department-specific conferences, so if you're interested in cardiology or oncology or surgery, psychiatry, you can find opportunities through those individual departments. And then at the VA, there are a lot of opportunities through the geriatric clinic there. And Rob, Dr. Spencer can talk about those in a little bit when we cover the research there. Okay, so the education is the same no matter where you are. The clinical experiences will vary by site. So the U of M and the VA have different clinical experiences that they specialize in. If you're at the U, we have adult postdocs and pediatric postdocs. If you're on the adult side, you will see 4 cases per week, and almost all of them utilize a psychometrist. There might be an occasional pre-surgical bariatric case that you might see where you do a very brief cognitive screen yourself, or there might be an adult ADHD case where you do a very brief cognitive screen yourself. Otherwise, they're all done with the use of a psychometrist. The common sorts of cases that we see at the U include neurodegenerative disorders, epilepsy, autoimmune disorders, hematological or oncology cases, psychiatric disorders, and then we see some remote TBI, not acute cases. And then additionally, adult postdocs will participate in a 4-month rotation. So there are 3 rotations that we have postdocs do at the U. One is called the Cognitive Disorders Clinic, where you will take all the cases that are seen in neuropsychology and report to neurology when that patient goes to have a follow-up in neurology. So you'll get to observe the neurological exam administered by the neurologist, and you'll help to provide feedback in that setting. Another rotation is the epilepsy rotation, in which adult postdocs will attend the epilepsy refractory conference, in which they will report on the neuropsychological testing for the epi patients that we see. You'll also assist with WADAs when you're on that rotation. And then we are really committed to a lifespan approach at Michigan Medicine. So even if you're an adult-focused postdoc, you will do a 4-month rotation in pediatrics. And I think it's almost universal that our postdocs really appreciate that. And when it comes time to look for a job, it's helpful. On the pediatric side, the case number that you will see will vary based on the clinics that you choose to participate in, but almost all cases utilize a psychometrist. The common cases in pediatrics that we see are epilepsy. We see a lot of congenital heart defects. We see a lot of cancer patients or hematological conditions. We see a lot of neurodevelopmental disorders and genetic disorders. If you're on the pediatric rotation, in the pediatric clinic, you will see patients in ADHD clinic on a rotation there. You will have a rotation in autism clinics. You'll have a rotation in the long-term follow-up clinic, which is through oncology. And then again, even if you're on the pediatric side, you will do a 4-month rotation in adult. And those are the clinical experiences on the U of M side. And now Dr. Spencer can talk about the VA clinical experiences.
Sure. The VA clinical experiences are a little bit different in that it's less of an emphasis on the outpatient, traditional type of neuropsychological evaluation, and more of an emphasis on working within clinics. So people see about 2 outpatients per week, and at least half of your outpatients will be seen with a psychometrist. And the others will be cases that you test yourself. Batteries are fairly flexible. There's usually a pretty solid core with a gelatinous cover, and it's just to customize to meet the needs of the referral questions. The outpatient clinic that we have is mainly from cases that we're getting from primary care, but mental health, neurology, physical medicine, and rehabilitation, they refer a lot of cases as well. They're veterans, so it's an older population. It's a lot of men, overwhelmingly men, and so you get a little bit of similarity there from case to case. There's a lot of psychiatric overlay. If anyone's worked at a VA before, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, there's a lot of psychiatric overlay, and there's also an element of performance validity. And so it's a place to develop those skills, to be able to not just detect it, but be able to work with it in a tactful way, because they're still our patients, even if there's performance validity breaches. The clinics within the hospital, we have the polytrauma clinic, which is sometimes referred to as a TBI clinic. And these are people with remote TBIs who are having all sorts of problems. So it doesn't have to be from a TBI, even if the veteran believes that it is. It could be that it is from chronic pain. They could have problems from mental health in general, PTSD in particular. And so it really is, it calls upon your psychosocial skills. The geriatrics clinic is something that people do in their second year, the polytrauma first year, geriatric second year. And that is a clinic that meets once a week. And it is, it's a variety of people 65 and older. And it's a clinic run by geriatrics. And they really do value neuropsychological input. So both in screening, on the spot full evaluations, which is really good customer service, and most importantly, on the spot feedback is very helpful. And then an optional thing that I would encourage people to take advantage of is working in the community living center. It's very fast paced. It calls upon your entire toolbox. So you need to be on your toes for that. And that is with Dr. Hale. Everyone at the VA must do at least one rotation at the university, so you can balance out that predominantly older male demographic with some variety. And so that's sort of an unofficial VA thing, is that you have to do something from the other side. We also, as far as clinical experiences, we have work with younger trainees. So we have an internship program, and we have practicum students. And so the opportunity to supervise in a tiered fashion is available to whoever wants it, and most people do want it if the opportunity arises. And that means that you would provide supervision, and then your supervision would itself be supervised by one of the staff people at the VA. Dr. Petruba?
So that makes me think just about the general overlap of the two programs. As Dr. Spencer said, if you're at the VA, it's required that you do something at the U. And if you're at the U, it's recommended that you do something at the VA too. So both sites have different things to offer, and we do encourage cross training. So if one thing at one site really interests you, but you're housed at the other site, we can always make something work for you to get the experience at the other site. And Dr. Spencer, there is a comment that says, is the clinical research involvement split of approximately 50-50 the same at the VA as it is at Michigan Medicine? I'll speak to part of that, which is the 50-50 split is 50% clinical and then 50% research and education. So that education piece goes in there too, but I will let you speak to the VA.
Yeah, pretty much. So we informally / semi-formally track one of our positions to be more academically oriented, and the other one is more flexible. It usually ends up being more clinically oriented, but if anybody's interested, send me a message. I can give you some examples of some publications that people in our clinic have done who have been in the academic track and the clinical track. And I can say that you can get as much research as you want, but the key is that you have to have that 50% clinical time. That's a more solid 50. If people want to do more clinical work for the one track at the VA, they absolutely can do more clinical work. But as Dr. Vitru will go over, there are standards that we have that you have to meet for research in order to be successful in the postdoc. And so some fellows in the past have done the couple of publications, a few presentations, and then focused on the research, on the clinical work more. And we've also had it where people have decided that they want to get a lot of research because it's postdoc. And this is your best, maybe in some cases, if you're doing a clinical career, your last great opportunity to just hunker down and crank out some publications. So it's flexible, but the 50 though is less flexible. You have to get at least 50 of the clinical time in order to graduate.
And at both sites, that's one of our commitments, is to treat each postdoc really as an individual that has individual goals. So there are definitely some postdocs that are more clinically oriented, and so their research expectations might be lower than someone that's going to have a more academic career. And we'll just meet you where you are and try to help you get where you want to go in that regard. So that leads into the research experiences. So this is something, kind of, the education is universal. The clinical experiences are somewhat site dependent, and the research is then very individual dependent. At the U, we have 3 kind of tracks. We call one adult neuromedical, which are more younger, middle-aged adults with various cognitive difficulties, and then geriatrics and pediatrics. So the adult neuromedical track focuses their research in areas of epilepsy, oncology, motor disorders, and several studies regarding DBS, deep brain stimulation. We are obviously integrally linked with psychiatry, so we have a lot of research studies in bipolar disorder and serious mental illness, and we do some work in obesity and metabolic syndrome. So those are kind of the areas where we really focus in this adult neuromedical section. But if you have an interest that's outside of there, we have done that too. So we've had postdocs come into the adult neuromedical track and really wanted to do concussion work. And so we used our existing relationships with people that do concussion work and help make that happen. So we are pretty flexible in that adult neuromedical slot. In terms of geriatrics, we have a lot of research ongoing in MCI and AD, given our close proximity to the Michigan Alzheimer's Disease Research Center and multiple faculty members that have appointments there. We have studies that are recruiting for next year looking at driving in the elderly, looking at caregiver burden. We have neuroimaging studies and cognitive rehab studies, and looking at health behaviors with biomarker disclosure. So those are all things in the older adults that we're working on. Again, if your interest is somewhat different, we could probably find the faculty to help you do what you want to do. In pediatrics, we have a lot of ongoing research with congenital heart defects, since we see so many of those patients clinically. One of our faculty members is very involved in pediatric cancer and works in the long-term follow-up clinic in pediatrics. We are studying early childhood ASD. We have a cool study going on now looking at driving in adolescents that have been diagnosed with ASD and how we can potentially get those patients to drive, and also looking at educational service disparities. Again, we have some that are funded slots from research projects and some that are not funded from research projects. So the ones that are obviously research funded are more focused, and that's the type of work that you're going to primarily be doing. Other slots are a little more variable, and you can have more direction in what you want to do. We do encourage postdocs to work with more than one supervisor if they're interested. So though you will have a primary professional mentor, and people typically do the type of research that their mentor is doing, they don't always do that research. and they might be interested in doing a side project with somebody else, and that's fine. We encourage that too. And I'll let Dr. Spencer talk about the research going on at the VA.
Didn't want to unmute. So the research that I do and that Dr. Hale does is focused on measurement and psychometrics. And it's because I really, really like psychometrics, and I can't get enough of not just the small picture, but the big picture and what our assumptions are, and the tools that we use, especially the statistical assumptions that we make behind a lot of the decisions that we carry out. And for one, I'm very interested in the limitations in criterion measures in constraining all of our stats that we get. And we usually find a lot of cross-institution collaborations with addressing a lot of these issues. And plus we have data at the VA as well that we can use. So some of the things that we've been interested in more recently is screening measures and the assets and limitations of those. I think one of the themes is that we're very interested in limitations of measures and limitations of statistical approaches, just kind of being a Debbie Downer to everyone. I kind of find that fun. But we also have with our collaborations. So we have a collaborator in Congo. We've other universities in the United States, just working on data and collaborating on projects. Students tend to be involved. And on the academic track, then there's work with Dr. Hamstead. And, Dr. Hamstead, who I would love to speak with anyone who wants to reach out to Dr. Hamstead about some of the specifics of his philosophy and what happens in his track. He really is preparing people to be researchers and to get to learn the grant funding mechanisms, and then to get that funding. And someone who has those kinds of interests can really be mentored. He has a variety of projects, so not just with the Alzheimer's Disease Center, but the rehab type work that he does, especially with transcranial direct stimulation, is really cutting edge. And so the people that have worked with him in the past have ended up with pretty nice looking experiences and CVs, and a lot of directions that they can choose from. So we also encourage people, if they find something at the university side, to reach out and collaborate across town. We're good with collaborating with the university, and we're definitely good with postdocs finding whatever is their best fit research wise. We like for some of it to be related to the VA, but we're good with the flexibility.
So I can speak to one of the questions in the Q&A, which said, elaborate on the use of psychometrists. So at the U, pretty much all cases are used with use a psychometrist, but these psychometrists are phenomenal, and I can't emphasize that enough. They all have master's degrees, and the majority of them have been doing this for 20 years or more. They are excellent at behavior observations, and we are in communication with the psychometrists throughout the day. It's a really valuable asset to have them, and it allows a type of work that you can't do in a lot of settings. So basically, we encourage all of our patients to come with a caregiver of some sort. And so while the patient is testing, we are allowed to talk to that caregiver for as long as we need and get that collateral information apart from the patient, which is very different from the type of information that you typically gather if you interview the patient with the collateral. It does take getting used to, but I love it. And I'll let one of our postdoctoral fellows talk to you at the end about how he was able to transition to that model and what he thinks of it. But from my experience, most of the fellows have found it really helpful, both in terms of time management, allowing them to get research done and clinical work done. And they get valuable information from the psychometrist from those behavior observations. And then there's another question that says, I believe on the Michigan side, they said they see 4 cases a week. Clinically, does the VA side also see 4 cases a week? I think I can answer by saying it varies because the work is a little different. It's within a clinic, but Rob, if you'd like to take that one.
Yeah, you see more, but 2 of them will be traditional outpatient, and then you'll see briefer encounters. So in the polytrauma clinic, which is 2 days a week, usually you have 2-ish encounters. So when I say 2-ish, I mean between 0 and 4. And it could be something very brief, like a psychoeducational meeting with a patient and their spouse, or it could be that you're doing brief screening. It could be that you're doing on the spot, like let's get it done, 2-hour soup to nuts neuropsychological evaluation. And so those brief things usually end up with more. So I would say that the modal person that leaves usually has 200-ish outpatient neuropsychological evaluations, some of which are at the university. And then I would say 75-ish polytrauma encounters and about 100 geriatric clinic encounters. And then if they work in the CLC, those encounters can be very different from one to another, but they can add up pretty quickly. But I will address another thing about the psychometrist. Some people feel like, I miss the testing, like I miss being in the room and seeing the scores come alive, those sorts of things. If that's what people want to do and they're assigned to work with a psychometrist, which is a professional psychometrist we have, we don't tend to use practicum students as psychometrists, although we're flexible in that too. If you want to do your own testing and get in there, there's flexibility all the way from you can do the testing yourself. Dr. Vertruba says that for time management purposes, it might not always work out for you to want to do your testing all the time, but if you want to, you can. Or you could do a portion of it. You could have our psychometrists do the boring stuff, and then you could come in for the good stuff. So, that maybe that piques your interest. Some people have liked that level of flexibility because, I love to give people trails. I just want to see them do trails. Well, fine. You can do trails. You can do an hour of testing and it's generally okay. Our psychometrist is not going to complain. All right, Dr. Vertruba.
And at the U, you have to do at least one test. It can be whatever test you want. So if you want to do trails, do trails. If you want to just give a personality inventory verbally, you can do that, whatever you prefer. There's another question about which rotations cross over. No rotations really cross over. You will either be doing something at the U or something at the VA. But if you find something at the other site that you want to do, then you would take 3 months and do that experience over there. And we negotiate the clinical experiences that you're having at your home site during that time. Okay. I'm going to hold that next one and just talk a little bit about supervision. So there's 2 types of supervision. One is supervision of postdocs and one is supervision by postdocs. Dr. Spencer talked a little bit about supervision by postdocs. So there's the opportunity to supervise practicum students, VA interns. There's undergraduate students working on research projects. So you can request a student for a whole year if you want to work on your research through the University of Michigan Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. And you can also participate in teaching. So if there's seminars or talks that faculty are asked to give, we frequently funnel them to postdocs that want to get an additional talk on their Vita. So you have all those opportunities available to you. Predoctoral practicum students have been a little sparse in the last couple of years because of COVID, but we're hoping to get back to more of those. And if you're at the U and really want to prioritize education and supervision and you want more, then you can go over to the VA and get the experience of supervising the VA interns. In terms of supervision of postdoctoral residents, you will receive at least 2 hours of supervision per week. 1 hour of that supervision will be with your primary professional mentor, and that will be covering clinical progress, research progress, professional development issues, any issues that have come up, and that professional mentor will just assist you in getting through the program. The other hour per week at the U is spent in clinical case supervision. So you have 4 cases per week. You might have multiple supervisors for those cases, and at least 1 hour per week will be spent discussing those cases with your supervisor for that case. In terms of some benefits, the stipends aren't determined till January, but just to give you a sense, right now they are about $55,000 for the first year with generous health benefits, and then improvements in stipend and continued benefits in the second year. You also receive paid vacation, which varies a little bit by site, but at the U it's 21 days, and at the VA it varies because they have federal holidays, but it's similar across sites. You have 15 days of sick time, you have 5 days of conference time, and you also have financial support for that. So you're given $1,000 per year to attend conferences and present your research, and you're also given a subscription for EPPP study materials to use for studying. And I'm going to save this slide. Oh, she's here. So Dr. Gibson is our Associate Chair of DE&I in Psychiatry, and she is here to talk a little bit about our commitment to DE&I initiatives.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Can you just give me a sense of how much time I have? I think I can go through my slides fairly quickly, but I just want to make sure I adhere to that. And while they're doing that, I'll get my slides ready. I just want to invite people to, if you have questions as I'm speaking, to just put them, I guess, in the Q&A. Is that what we're doing? We're putting them in the Q&A, and you can just put them as I go along.
Yep.
Okay, so can you just give me a sense of how much time I have?
I'd say 5 to 7.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Polly Gibson. I want to first start by saying that I had the pleasure of completing my postdoctoral fellowship in the program. I'm not a neuropsychologist. I was in the clinical child section, but I worked very closely with the neuropsych fellows during my time because we are a consortium, and it was great to just have a broader program. So I just wanted to state that. But I'm here today because, as you can see, I have a number of different roles, but the role that I'm here is that I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Chair for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here in the department. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing from the DEI perspective. So first, I just want to start by sharing our departmental mission, which is to integrate principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion into our organizational culture and policies to promote the emotional health and well-being of all employees, trainees, patients, research participants, and our community. We are committed to creating a safe space that facilitates diverse thinking and representation, equal opportunity, an increased sense of belonging, and decreased bias and stigma. We seek to continually evolve in our knowledge and understanding of the strengths that come from our differences and similarities so that all are treated with dignity and respect. So I know that that is a lot, but I do want you to know that we worked on that as a department and as a work group, and we received input, and every word matters to us, and it's a commitment to the department. I won't read this next one in its entirety, but I will make sure if there's a way to send out my slides, I will send this out to you. But I like to show this because I do want you to know that as an institution, Michigan Medicine over 2 years ago, declared that we would become an anti-racist institution. And this was a statement that was released at that time. And I'll just highlight maybe some of the bold, which is acknowledging that racism is a public health crisis and that we're committed to creating fundamental change that leads to a system of anti-racism. And also just acknowledging that we desire to be a leader in health equity and that we're working to create an anti-racism community. And this is consistent with our other core values. So again, I can get this out to you if you'd like the full statements. And then the last thing I want to share is that Michigan Medicine is very much focused on building our base. And this connects very well to what we're doing here from a DEI perspective, because the B for base stands for belonging. And so we know that, in terms of thinking about DEI, that belonging matters in particular. And I imagine as you learn about different programs, you're probably thinking about your sense of belonging and the goodness of fit. And it's important because it helps to create a community where you can feel confident and expressing your true self. And that's one of the things that we value. We also know that people who feel that they belong are more comfortable communicating their ideas, sharing their experiences, as well as contributing to the broader group at large. And belonging can have a positive impact on retention, performance, and overall innovation. So these are all of the things that we value. And what you can see here from this Venn diagram, it just shows that, there's this intersection of thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as belonging. And so as an organization, we're committed to engaging you as your full self, because we want you to thrive, and we want you to be able to be your authentic self and be able to share your beliefs and your values and know that those are going to be integrated. So just to tell you a little bit about what we're doing more specifically as a department, our DEI initiative is composed of various work groups. And so what you'll see here, these are the 5 work groups: clinical, education, outreach, research, and workplace environment. And as a prospective fellow, you have an opportunity to be involved in any of these work groups that you would like to be involved in. Or if you're not able to be involved in the work groups as a member, you certainly are welcome to attend all the activities that we put on. So in the middle here, it shows you what are our objectives. So one of the ones I'd like to point out that I think is relevant to you from the clinical perspective is, in the DSM-5, there's a cultural formulation interview. And in the new year, we're actually going to be piloting the CFI, the cultural formulation interview, with our trainees. And so that could be an opportunity where you could be trained in that instrument. In terms of our education, we're committed to creating safe spaces for faculty and staff to learn and engage in critical discussions about DEI. And we do this through monthly lunch and learns, monthly book clubs. And now we're actually doing more than annual grand rounds, but we at least have an annual grand rounds. In terms of our outreach, I know that a number of trainees have gotten involved here. We actually get out in the community. I actually used to be the chair of the outreach work group before I became the associate chair. And so this is an opportunity to explore Ann Arbor and to be of service. So we've done things like participate at Neutral Zone, which is a center here for youth, and in particular what welcomes LGBTQI youth. We've also gone to various gardens. We've gone to shelters where people are unhoused and helped to do service projects there. So there's a number of different opportunities that we have done. And we also do things for inside of our walls. So we're not always just doing things out in the community. We also think about our workplace as a community as well. From the research perspective, there's a lot of great work that's happening there in terms of working on community-based participatory research toolkits and workplace environment. One of the programs we just piloted was an ambassador program. And this is where we have champions on various clinical and research teams that are sharing all of the great things that are going on, not just in the department, but at the institution at large. So just a couple more things, and then I'll stop and I'll be happy to take any questions. Oh, I was just going to highlight a couple of things that we've done over the past year that have been very well received. So one of our initiatives was to engage faculty, staff, and trainees in talking circles. We did 2 of these in the past academic year. One was focused on the intersection of DEI and wellness, and the other was focused on anti-racism. And talking circles are opportunities where conversation can lead to a greater breadth of knowledge regarding oppression, privilege, and power, and a better appreciation of the other and different experiences, with the aim that improved understanding will hopefully lead to actions that will challenge racism in all of its forms. And so this was an opportunity to be in a small group with other faculty, staff, and trainees. You had a facilitator, and they just walked their small group through answering some questions and dialoguing about DEI topics. And that was something that was well received. Another opportunity that trainees participated in this past spring, there was a youth summit at the Big House where the football team plays, and all of the units at Michigan Medicine were there. We engaged the youth in mental health Kahoot, and we did have volunteers who worked with us that entire day. There were also panel discussions where there were opportunities to talk to young people about careers in healthcare. And in particular, we talked about mental health. So these are opportunities where you can get involved and you can participate alongside us. So I think I'll stop there. These are some various links that give you some more information about DEI from a departmental perspective, as well as an institutional perspective. I will see how to share those out to you. And I also just want to show a few slides that just acknowledge so many faculty, staff, and trainees that have been involved in this effort. So I will leave now with my email address. I invite you to reach out to me, but I think I might have a minute or so where if there's any questions that anyone might want to ask, please put those in the Q&A and I'd be happy to answer them. So I hope that you've enjoyed this open house, and I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any other questions about our DEI efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. And this will, the whole presentation will be on our website, so they'll be able to download those links.
Okay, sounds good. Were there any questions for me?
Don't think so. It said, can you speak to the typical demographics of the patients served at Michigan Medicine and VA Ann Arbor? I can do that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I hope you all have a good rest of the open house. And I can hang on. Are you going to talk about neuropsych, specifically DEI? Because I can mute myself and hang on if you want to talk about that.
Sure. Let me go back to sharing. So some of the opportunities available for DE&I through psychiatry and neuropsychology in particular include monthly lunch and learns. There's a U of M DE&I committee in psychiatry, and there's also one in neuropsychology specifically. So in psychiatry, there are different arms that focus on clinical work, research, education, the workplace environment, and community outreach. And then at the bottom of this page, I mentioned some of the things that Neuropsych DE&I committee has done, including creating batteries for those that are hearing impaired or vision impaired, as well as gender neutral batteries that include tests that have norms that are not based on gender for anyone who does not identify as one gender. We've also revised all of our clinical history forms and questionnaires to be more inclusive. So both the psychiatry and neuropsychology DE&I committees are quite active. We have a psychiatry DE&I retreat, which is offered annually through psychiatry, as well as a certificate program designed to prepare individuals to work in diverse environments while fostering a climate of inclusivity.
And Dr. Matruba, Taylor Schmidt just got a grant to do some outreach. So go and create applicants and not just recruit.
That she did just today. So social and wellness in particular is also very important to us. So we're interested in training great neuropsychologists, but we're also interested in you having a well-rounded life while you're here. So this picture up in the top left is kind of my happy place where I go every summer. It's kind of what Michigan looks like in the summer. It's a phenomenal place to be. The bottom left is a picture of Doggy Day that we had in our clinic. Here are just some additional pictures of us living our daily life. So the bottom picture on the left is our former training director, Dr. Bilauskas, with me. The middle picture is one of our former postdocs with Dr. Marshall and Dr. Buchtel doing a WADA. There are parties that people go to. We have frequent gatherings. We have outings fairly frequently. We're just having another one this month where we're all going to go to a corn maze together, hopefully not get lost. And I just want to leave some time to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a postdoc at U of M. So here are just some pictures of some of our former postdocs having a good time. Here is a picture of our postdoc class from last year outside of the psychiatry building. And I'm going to invite Dr. Brandon Alme to speak for a couple minutes. He is one of our current second-year postdocs in the pediatric slot, and he'll just tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a postdoc.
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot of what Dr. Viterbo said about Ann Arbor. It's a really cool city. I think of it as a nice mix between a small city and a college town. It's kind of like kind of in that nice middle ground there. Awesome food scene here. The downtown's got a lot going on. I've recently been trying to sample from Sparrow Kitchen. It's this diner, and they haven't missed. I've sampled wildly, and just everything's a home run, what you really like. Farmers market's great here too as well. Really good coffee scene, roost roast, amazing. And I think Ann Arbor does a good job too in terms of if you're gluten-free, vegan, or have kind of other food restrictions, or interested in sampling a ton of different food options. Ann Arbor has that for us. That being said, if it's too hectic, there are a ton of really cool outdoorsy activities just less than or about an hour's drive from Ann Arbor. There's a dark sky park I went to recently that is kind of has qualification from astronomers to be sufficiently dark to do a lot of cool stargazing, tons of mountain biking and hiking trails. On the other side of the coin, Detroit's only an hour away. It's not impossible to go to an evening show there on a weeknight and you know, be back. It's pretty doable, which I appreciate. So not only is it just, you know, Ann Arbor has a lot going on, but where it's next to is pretty neat. And I would say hyper locally, Commonwealth at least is like walking distance from a cafe, some sushi, some lunch options. So if you forget to pack a lunch like I do sometimes, it's an easy way to walk over there and get some food, which is great. So that's kind of a really brief kind of introduction to Ann Arbor, and I'm happy to answer other questions about living here too. Yeah, and then I think really briefly just about the program in general. I think the biggest important part of this is that there is actual time to go out and do these things because our faculty take work-life balance seriously. Just a couple weeks ago, there was a really good journal club around resources to be efficient writing reports or how to kind of manage workflows. I really appreciate. And I think that I totally agree in terms of the limitless vibe of just the experiences, not just in the education experiences, but also the medical range, the cases. I was able to see a WADA today and then do a developmental clinic with Dr. Richard. And just to have that range in one day is really neat. And most importantly, across those experiences, so interventional radiology, EEG techs, pediatricians, everyone's really nice. You know, everyone values their work. They do an awesome job. They take their job seriously. But all the kind of medical things I've done in Commonwealth and beyond in Michigan medicine, everyone's been really thoughtful and caring. So definitely appreciated my year plus here.
Thank you, Brandon. So here are a list of our current first year and second year neuropsychology fellows, as well as where they had their graduate training and where they completed internship, as well as their current email addresses. So they are all open to receive any questions from all of you. sometimes it's the best person to ask is somebody that is actually experiencing it right now. So please feel free to reach out to any of them. And then just as a reminder for our last slide of the application requirements, we had the formal application on our linked from our website. We require a letter of interest, which states your future goals, a graduate school transcript, a CV, a letter from your DCT, and this is separate from your 3 letters of recommendation. So the letter from your DCT does not need to be a letter of recommendation. It just needs to say you're in good standing in the university and you are expected to graduate on time. Again, the deadline is December 1st. The submission materials are all done electronically, and here's the link again, and the link is also on our website. We will not be participating in the match, so if you are interested in applying, you can express interest in more than one of our positions, and then once we review all the applications, we will contact you for an interview, which will take place in December, potentially January, through a video call. If you have any other questions, you can contact me, and there's my email and my phone number. And we really look forward to seeing your application. So there were a couple questions in the Q&A that we could not answer. So what I will do is I will link this webinar to our website, and any of the questions that were not answered, I will type out an answer and link that in the website as well. So thank you all for attending, and you all have a great night.